Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode of My Lawyer Next Door. Here, this is Billy Ramachandran from Ramachandran Law PC. Beside me is a good friend of mine, a criminal lawyer, a very good one, Sujith Sutharsan from Sutharsan Law Professional Corporation. Sujith, tell us about yourself.
Yes, we've been working together for a while. We have a shared office space here in Scarborough, 305 Milner Avenue, and of course, he does a number of different areas of law, but it's primarily when he has family law files, I have criminal law files. We've been able to work together to help our clients. And today, I think we have a good topic for you guys. That is a question that a lot of law students and young lawyers are asking us about, and we think it'd be very helpful to sort of put that forward to you guys. A lot of these young lawyers and law students always ask us, why did we decide to open our own law firm opposed to working for someone else, and sort of the struggles and thought process that go behind that. And one of the first things they always ask us is, hey, why do you even think of opening your own law firm? Why work for yourself instead of working for someone else? Or particularly in the beginning, you're likely to make more money working for someone else.
Yeah, so for me, I started off working for someone else. I started in a boutique corporate litigation firm. I articled there. I finished. It was almost 3 years there. And for me, the choice became it was different considerations because for me, I got married in that 3 years, and I was about to have my second kid. With that corporate lifestyle, I barely saw my first one. And I'm like, okay, as soon as I found out my wife was pregnant with a second child, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, I needed to be able to spend time with my children and my family, and that was a priority to me. So, naively enough, I thought starting my own law firm all by myself was going to be the best solution. Um, and for me, it turned out that it was worse for the first 2.5 years, and only until you know, the third year or almost 3 years in is when I'm able to kind of step back. Now I can actually go on a 7 day vacation with minimal involvement into the firm's daily. Last winter I went on a vacation for almost 2 weeks, and I still had to work from Dubai from I think it was like almost like 11 p.m. their time to 2 a.m. Their time every day, regardless of where I was located. So for me, it was a consideration of family, but I think I'm gonna get there. I think I see the light. I see like where we're going with the vision, and I think I will get my desire of having that time to spend with my kids.
Okay, so for you, of course, I guess the foremost was the family aspect and being able to control your time. And I sort of share that too. I think for me, it was very important that like I enjoy being able to control my time and being independent. I think that was something from the beginning for me. And with owning your own law firm, although there are obligations to your clients and court dates, and generally speaking, you can control your time. And I really value that a lot, where I would give up, at least $20,000 a year for me to control my time because I value my time a lot. Another motivation for me was, obviously our parents all came here as refugees. For me, I'm like, we're in a new country, and a lot of refugees and immigrants like to own their own business. I had that same inspiration where I'd rather own my own business in this free land and then working for someone else. And I sort of have a different idea than you did. For me, is like I was single, my expenses were very low, and for me to take that risk while my expenses are very low was easier because I didn't have a monthly. I have to make this much money to make ends meet. So for me, I'm like, even if I start my own business, like my expenses are under $1,000, as long as I'm making $1,500 for that month, I'm okay. So it's easier for me to start that business when I was young and single and didn't have those obligations. Where I see, obviously for you, it was a lot harder to start off because you have to make those obligations up front.
So, what would you tell our viewers if they're considering like what should be factors that are like I guess do's and don'ts? And like, I think one thing I would tell them is like don't run for the money right away. Like you're not getting it.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think the do's and don'ts are what a lot of viewers would probably want to know about. And I think we have two very different perspectives because in criminal law, there are a lot of people that go out early on their own because the expenses are very low. We don't technically need staff to begin. We don't need to pay for all these like real estate software and this and that when we begin, where it's a lot easier to start off on your own because your expenses are very low and your overhead is very low. And technically, I didn't even need an office right away, but thankfully you helped me out and put me on my feet with the office, which helps bring in clients. But those kind of expenses aren't there in criminal law, where you had a lot of different obligations when you're starting out because you're starting these other areas a lot more expensive, right?
Yeah, I think like yeah, I think it really follows the type of law. I think you're right. Criminal, I think on one spectrum is like the easiest to enter with as cost wise, and then you go all the way in, which I think PI is where you need the most amount of cash flow to start because you're sitting on files for 2 3 years before they start monetizing. You're paying for doctors reports, expert reports, everything. You know, even like sometimes I get asked is like, why am I not doing PI where you're in civil litigation? You're only missing the AB side, and I'm like, look, I really don't have the cash flow to sustain myself for on a 2 year burn to run that kind of department at the level I want to run it at. Like I don't want to have like two files. Like I'm not interested in that.
Hmm.
And I think like I found a medium ground. Like my background in civil litigation, where there's not too many startups. There's disbursements, but not too much startup costs. Real estate was, I think, staff intensive because there's so many things going on. Family was also more like staff intensive because you had to be very organized. So I think like in those areas, like I had to start with a staff which are very very pricey. Um, Office location, I thought it was really important to have a physical space. I appreciate the hybrid model, but I still think there's a the value is in the human touch,
Hmm.
and I think if you could drag so much more business out of a client or a referral when you meet with them. It's tough conversations and build a relationship. And as a young person, like I'm fighting for a client, with all these experienced lawyers. So I think if I could put my personal touch with that client, I think I had a stronger chance of retaining that client, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, and I agree. I think both of us would agree. Clients that come in and sit down for a meeting are more likely to retain than someone you speak to over the phone or over
Yeah.
Zoom because it's just there's a human aspect to it. And I think apart from the expenses and all of that, I think the other big consideration is how much risk you want to take on. I think between the two of us, you're obviously a little bit more risk forward than I am, and you're the one that sort of pushed me like, hey, why don't you have a website yet? Like those are important things that you should be spending money on, and you push me to take those risks with money, and it did pay off with putting a website out there, taking those like small expenses that you may worry about when you're starting a firm. If the if you can see the return on investment, even if it's a year from now, like just take the risk because starting up a firm is risky and you have to take those risks early on.
Yeah. So I think that yeah, those are the initial do's and don'ts. But if our viewers have any follow-ups on this, like we'll do follow-ups on these, because this entire series was based on our last episode where we got questions about this. So if you have any more questions on like what you would think or what you want to hear from us on considerations on opening your own firm, law firm, please hit us up. We'll put up all of Sujith's contact information in the video link below, and you'll have my contact information as well. And it's really like I think we're two people who are really willing to help young people move so you don't get burnt with the same mistakes we did. So with that, we'll sign off on this one, and we'll see you on the next one.